What are we talking about today? Great dive watches at different price points. Today I'm drinking 49th Parallels Old School Espresso. Cheers. So some of us might be wondering, so what determines a watch to be legitimately called a diver's watch? Well, according to Berner's Illustrated Professional Dictionary of Horology, it's simply defined as a watch designed to withstand immersion to a depth of at least 100 meters and to satisfy requirements specified in ISO standard 6425. The qualifications list is extensive, so I'm just summing it up, but I'll leave a link to the full description in the description below. So here are two examples. The Cartier's Calibre de Cartier Diver, it meets all the ISO requirements and it's marked diver's watch 300 meters versus the Seiko Sputura model, where it does not meet ISO 6425 standards and therefore it's marked as water resistant. So real quickly before we begin the list, there are a lot of watches that can meet the requirement to be a diver's watch, so we don't necessarily have to spend a lot of money on watches. We can get a Citizen ProMaster, an Orient M-Force Bravo, or Casio's G-Shock Frogman. Those will all satisfy the requirement of a diver's watch, so that's just something to keep in mind as we progress up the list. The first category is under $500, and that's the Seiko SRP 309 at 42.5 millimeters, and it's water resistant to 660 feet. By the way, the scuba diving record is 318 meters. So for any of us that think that we're in a running to beat it, that's not too likely. So all of these watches, again, will meet that requirement. So here's why I like this Seiko. First of all, Seikos are durable watches with solid finishes, and I'm a real fan of Seiko. Their diving function is reassured by the ISO 6425 certification. So they're an ideal choice for buyers on a limited budget. But this Seiko SRP 309, this uses the upgraded, or this is actually nicknamed the Orange Monster. And this is the second version, the second iteration. The first version used the 7S26 movement, and I covered this. This also doesn't hack. $250 Seiko versus $4,500 Grand Seiko video. And the difference between the new Seiko Calibre 4R36 movement, which this Seiko uses, it's 24 joules versus 21 joules. And you can actually use this. This watch actually hacks and is hand wound, and it's a lot more accurate than the first generation's 7S26 movement. So this is a really nice watch. For those of us who want to upgrade our Seiko watch to the Grand Seiko, well, this is a great Grand Seiko diver's watch. I think this is just a stunning piece. It's a large watch. It's 44 millimeters, but that power reserve, that really stands out. And before I move on, here's a quick story. The first time I saw anyone with this Grand Seiko diver's watch was maybe 3 weeks ago, maybe 4 weeks ago, and I was really anxious to have this conversation with this person. I've never met this person. We were just in the same area, and I had a conversation with him, and I just hoped that I would have had my Grand Seiko on at the same time, but instead I had to say, you know, I also have a Grand Seiko. But the interesting point is, his name is Davis. That's actually his first name, and he talked about this Grand Seiko versus the Rolex Deep Sea that he was interested in, and he actually went a full year before deciding which watch to get. He started off as thinking that he might want to get the Rolex, and then he went to the Grand Seiko. In fact, he was so adamant that he was going to get the Rolex, he felt like that way for about I think he said for a month or weeks at least, and then he went to the Grand Seiko, and then he reverted to the Rolex Deep Sea again, and this continued for an entire year, and before he made the decision on the Grand Seiko. And I think it was a week or 2 weeks he could keep the watch before exchanging it. I can't remember if it was a week or two, but he wore it every second of the day, even when he didn't need to, because he wanted to really make sure before he ended up being stuck with the watch. And he obviously kept the Grand Seiko, and he has had zero regrets on it. He said he really loves the watch, and what caught my eye is I noticed that power reserve right away, and that's why I wanted to have that conversation with him. And for a lot of us, if you tell anybody that it takes a full year to decide on a watch, they're going to think we're nuts. Some people are going to say, just drop me off in the middle of the mall. I'll go to the nearest watch kiosk or the department store and I'm in and out. And you could do that. But for a lot of us where watches are really a passion and a hobby of us, I truly get how long it takes to make a decision. A watch for some of us is going to be our biggest purchase, except for our house or our car. But for example, for our car, it requires a down payment or sometimes no down payment at all. So it's a lot cheaper to leave the lot with a brand new car than it is on a watch. So a watch is really a major investment for us. And so I really get it. There's been, for quite a while, I was going back and forth between the Milgauss and then that Mickey Mouse Rolex. So I really get how long it takes before we make such a decision. The second watch is up to $3,000, and that's the Omega Planet Ocean. And by the way, these prices are either gray market or pre-owned. Most of us don't pay retail anymore. But the Planet Ocean new goes for about $6,500, but you can get one for about $3,000, maybe $3,200. And it comes in different sizes, 39.5 millimeters, 43.5 millimeters, and 45.5 millimeters for the chronograph. But I like its looks, I like the coaxial movement, and I like its solid history, and to me this watch is actually really eye-catching. What I don't like on any watch is the two crowns on opposite sides of the case. But it does serve a purpose, and it has nothing to do with the normal underwater diving. It keeps the toxic air out that becomes available below 250 feet underwater. So it does serve a purpose, but to me, I don't like this look because it's less elegant and it's kind of awkward to me. But it is a great diver's watch. The third watch is up to $5,000. And that's the IWC Aqua Timer. It retails for about $7,000, but you can get one for about $4,500, $5,000. It's 42 millimeters. Now, I actually have experience with the Aqua Timer. I also did a video called My Journey with IWC right here. And that involved the process of my selling the IWC, and I was going to use those funds for a new diver's watch. Even though I have a Panerai, I am over the 44 millimeter sizes, so I was thinking about getting the Blancpain or the Rolex Submariner. Here's a clip of what I mean. I'll show you the clip right here. In 2010, I bought my first IWC. It was the Aqua Timer. I think at the time I bought it, I was more in love owning an IWC than the Aqua Timer itself. I always wanted an IWC. I really wanted the Portuguese. So the current IWC Aqua Timer model actually uses for the first time their in-house movement. The Aqua Timer that I had, I think they used the ETA 2824, but it was heavily modified, and in my 6 years of owning that watch, it was really dependable and it was extremely accurate. It was actually one of the most accurate watches I have. So when IWC modifies their movement, they do so heavily, oftentimes making it an all-new movement. So what I didn't like about that watch was, like I said, I was over the larger size. That was a really chunky watch, and not being an in-house movement did bother me a little bit, even though I just said it was really accurate. I would have preferred it to have an in-house movement. But my favorite IWC Aqua Timer is the 3536. I think this is the best looking Aqua Timer IWC has ever made. This is made of titanium, and this was from the early 2000s. I really like this watch. Even though this is not an in-house movement, to me this is the best looking IWC Aqua Timer. The fourth diver's watch is up to $7,000, and that's the JLC's Deep Sea Chronograph. This retails for about $99.50, but you can get one for about $7,000, and I like it because it's also chronographed, and it's a JLC. There's really not much not to like about a JLC. This is really an elegant watch, and I think this can take you from the boardroom or from the beach to the boardroom and everywhere in between. It's 42 millimeters also, and because it's a JLC, I'm going to always be a fan of it. And the fifth watch goes up to $8,000, and that's the Blancpain's 50 Fathoms. It actually retails for $15,000. This is my favorite watch on the list, and from my video earlier, I was deciding between the Blancpains and the Rolex Submariner. I really like this Blancpain. I like everything about it. I think this is a really elegant looking watch, and just like the JLCs, it'll take you from the beach to the boardroom and everywhere in between. This is 43 millimeters, but it's not a really bulky watch. And what I don't like about it is that it actually has the poorest resale of any watch on this list. And that gives me a little bit of pause. So I don't have any knocks on the watch itself, but because it has such a poor resale, that's a little bit of a concern to me. Lord of Luxury actually sent me some information on Blancpain. In the story he sent me, it's essentially saying that the Blancpain 50 Fathoms came out first before the Rolex Submariner, and how the Rolex Submariner is really an homage to the Blancpain 50 Fathom. I'll put a link to that description, to the article in the description as well. So going back to earlier about Davis and his year-long contemplation between his Grand Seiko and the Rolex Deep Sea, and why I really get that. For example, this Blancpain, I've been going back and forth between this and a Rolex Submariner, like I said, and the Milgauss and the Mickey Mouse watch. There's always some watch that comes up that makes us, or gives us some pause and makes us consider a new watch. So I totally get that. And most of us don't go, you know, that IWC Aqua Timer that I had, that's never seen a drop of water in its 6 years that I've owned it. I would never wear a watch that's $5,000, $6,000, $10,000 into the ocean. But I would wear that Seiko or a lot less of an expensive watch. So I think for a lot of us, the more expensive that we spend on a dive watch is not something that we would actually use in swimming conditions, certainly not in the ocean. Some of us might take it into a swimming pool at most, but it's kind of doubtful that most of us or any of us would take such an expensive watch to be used in underwater. If somebody was to give me that watch or lend me that watch for diving purposes, I would love it. I would love to be able to test a watch, such an expensive watch, in real ocean conditions. But other than that, like a Citizen or a Seiko would be a more comfortable wear to wear under those conditions. And I think I read somewhere that the average dive depth for the average diver or swimmer is 30 feet. So we don't really go below that. So all of these watches, or a lot of the diving watches, will meet that requirement, like I said at the top of the show. But I do like some of the more expensive watches because I like the elegance to it that I would wear as a daily wear versus some of the chunkier, obvious divers watches. But I think the Seiko SRP 309 is actually a really sharp looking watch that you can wear anywhere as well. There is a diver's watch that's notably absent from this list. It's a watch that's made every possible diver's list, and that's obviously the Rolex Submariner, which could be my next watch purchase between this or maybe the Blancpain. But because it's made so many lists before, I didn't want to put it on this list so I could give other watches a mention, but it's definitely a watch deservingly to make any top list for a diver's watch. So let me know what diver's watches you think are really fantastic, and if you can relate to the year-long decision such as Davis had between making his next purchase. And thanks for watching. I'll see you the next time.